A civilization built monuments that challenge our modern understanding of engineering. Their structures have endured for thousands of years, and this video reveals the hidden blueprint that made it possible. You will learn the exact methods used to turn stone and sand into everlasting legacies, changing your perspective on human potential. How did they move stones heavier than elephants across the desert? What spiritual vision drove them to build for eternity? The answers lie in a sophisticated system of planning and belief that we are only now beginning to fully understand. What does it mean to create something truly meant to last forever? 5,000 years ago, the Nile Valley was a ribbon of green cutting through a vast desert. Each year, the river would overflow its banks, depositing rich, black silt that made the land incredibly fertile. This annual flood was the heartbeat of the region, a source of life that sustained a growing population. But with that gift came immense logistical challenges. The floodwaters erased field boundaries and displaced communities, demanding a highly organized society to manage the water, redistribute the land, and store surplus food. It was from this beautiful, demanding environment that a powerful civilization emerged, one uniquely equipped to think on a grand scale. This was the Old Kingdom, a period of unprecedented stability and central authority. The unification of Upper and Lower Egypt under a single ruler created a powerful state, a kingdom where resources and labor could be coordinated on a massive scale. The pharaoh was not just a king, he was a living god, the essential link between the people and the divine. This concept of divine kingship was the bedrock of their society. It meant that building a tomb for the pharaoh was not merely a construction project, it was a national act of religious significance, an investment in the cosmic order itself. A stable, resource-rich society, guided by a unifying spiritual vision, provided the perfect conditions for ambitious projects that transcended a single human lifetime. To understand why they built for eternity, we must first see the world through their eyes, a world where stone, sand, and the divine were woven into a single, enduring tapestry. The pharaoh stood at the nexus of two worlds, a living god whose primary duty was to uphold the very fabric of reality. This was not a symbolic role but a functional one, rooted in a principle known as Mat. Mat was the cosmic order, the divine force of truth, balance, and harmony that held chaos at bay and ensured the sun would rise each morning. The entire civilization was built around the maintenance of this delicate equilibrium, and the pharaoh was its chief engineer. His constructions, therefore, were far more than monuments. They were active instruments, massive machines of stone designed to channel divine power and sustain the universe. A pyramid was not simply a tomb, it was a ramp for the pharaoh's soul to ascend and join the eternal cycle of the sun god, ensuring his continued patronage over the land of Egypt. Ancient texts carved within the pyramids themselves speak to this sacred function, with one inscription declaring, "The sky is cleared, the earth trembles at the sound of the god's voice, as the king ascends to the sky among his brethren the gods." This was the ultimate justification for the staggering investment of an entire society's labor and wealth. Building for eternity was the price of cosmic insurance, a necessary act to preserve the world from descending into chaos. This spiritual imperative, the divine mandate to maintain Mat, was the unwavering why that fueled every aspect of their ambitious projects. Once this profound motivation was in place, the question became one of sheer logistics. How do you translate a god's command into a mountain of stone? The sheer scale of this ambition required a machine of equal magnitude, a social engine capable of turning human effort into eternal stone. This was the second principle, a system of centralized authority and resource mobilization unlike anything the world had yet seen. Think of the entire nation as a single, vast construction site, with every individual contributing to a shared, sacred goal under the direct command of the pharaoh's administration. This was not a society of slaves driven by whips, but a highly organized civilization where labor was a form of national service, a duty to the god-king that ensured cosmic and earthly order. The evidence for this is etched not only in the pyramids themselves, but in the ruins of the towns built for the workers. At Giza, the excavation of the so-called Lost City by archaeologists like Mark Lehner reveals a planned community with orderly streets, massive bakeries to produce thousands of loaves of bread, facilities for curing fish, and even evidence of medical care for injuries. These were not prisoners, but skilled laborers, artisans, and support staff who received rations of food, beer, and housing as a form of payment. How was such a massive undertaking funded and supplied? The state operated a powerful redistributive economy. Taxes were collected not as coin, but in the form of agricultural produce, livestock, and labor time. This created vast government storerooms of grain, meat, and cloth, which were then used to feed and supply the army of workers dedicated to the pyramid projects. This system, known as corvée labor, required every able-bodied citizen to contribute a certain number of days per year to state projects, a practice common in many ancient societies. In Egypt, however, this labor was framed as a sacred duty, a direct participation in a project that secured the future of the entire kingdom. It was this bureaucratic genius, this ability to harness the entire economy toward a single, monumental end, that transformed spiritual vision into physical reality. With a workforce assembled and supplied, the next challenge was one of pure intellect. How do you direct thousands of hands to build a structure of perfect geometric precision, a task that would challenge modern engineers even with our advanced tools? The night sky was not a distant mystery to the architects of the pyramids. It was a divine clockwork and a sacred map. Their third principle was a breathtaking mastery of astronomy, a science they used to forge an unbreakable link between the earth and the heavens. Consider the simple, staggering fact that the Great Pyramid's base is aligned to the four cardinal directions with an error of less than 1/15 of a single degree. To achieve such precision with the naked eye alone seems almost impossible, yet they did it repeatedly. This was not a lucky guess, it was the result of generations of meticulous observation. They tracked the cyclical movements of key stars, particularly Sirius, whose heliacal rising just before dawn signaled the vital annual flood of the Nile, and the imperishable stars, the circumpolar constellations that never set, symbolizing eternal life. Their primary tool for this was the Merkit, a simple but brilliant instrument consisting of a palm rib with a slit cut in it and a plumb bob. An astronomer priest would use this to sight a specific star as it crossed the meridian, the imaginary north-south line in the sky. By marking where the star rose and set on the horizon over many nights, they could establish true north with astonishing accuracy. This celestial alignment was deeply practical, rooted in their spiritual belief that the pyramid was a launchpad for the pharaoh's soul. The narrow shafts emanating from the king's chamber were not ventilation shafts, as was once thought, but were precisely targeted to point directly at these important stars, creating a conduit for the royal spirit to join the gods. Their monuments were therefore permanently synchronized with the cosmos, stone calendars and stellar compasses designed to function for all time. This celestial genius, however, relied on a parallel mastery of a more earthly language, the immutable laws of mathematics and geometry that gave their cosmic visions a perfect physical form. The desert floor was anything but a blank, level slate. Before a single stone could be laid, this rugged terrain had to be transformed into a geometrically perfect foundation. This demanded the fourth principle, a practical genius for geometry and surveying that turned chaotic nature into ordered stone. Teams of scribes and rope stretchers, the ancient surveyors, would arrive at the chosen site with their simple but brilliant tools. Their primary instrument was the knotted rope, a length of cord with evenly spaced knots that served as a standardized measuring rod. To lay out a perfect square, they would first establish a true north-south line using their astronomical knowledge. Then, they would create a right angle using a method so reliable it predates the Greek philosopher it's often named after. By creating a triangle with sides measuring 3, 4, and 5 units using their knotted rope, they could guarantee a perfect 90-degree corner every single time. This practical application of the relationship between the sides of a right-angled triangle reveals an early, working understanding of a principle we now call the Pythagorean theorem. Their mathematical prowess is preserved in documents like the Rhind Mathematical Papyrus, a scribe's training manual filled with problems on calculating area, volume, and slope. One of their most crucial concepts was the sect. This was not an angle in degrees as we think of it, but a precise ratio, the horizontal run of a slope for every 1 cubit of vertical rise. It was the sacred formula that gave every pyramid its distinctive soaring profile, ensuring that every block from the foundation to the capstone would fit perfectly into the grand design. This was not abstract math for the sake of knowledge. It was applied science, a language of lines and ratios born from the absolute necessity of building something meant to last for millennia. Their calculations provided the invisible lines on the desert canvas, but it was the stone itself that would give those lines permanent form. The stone itself was the final, crucial ingredient in this recipe for eternity. Deep within the quarries of Tura, across the river from the rising pyramids, a different kind of precision was at work. Here, teams of skilled quarrymen performed a kind of geological surgery, their task to extract immense blocks of stone without shattering the precious material. They did this with surprisingly simple tools, dolerite stone pounders and copper chisels, which they used not to cut the rock, but to masterfully exploit its natural weaknesses. By repeatedly pounding along a predetermined line, they would create a deep groove in the limestone. Then they would drive dry wooden wedges into this channel and soak them with water. As the wood swelled with tremendous, inexorable force, it would cleanly split the stone along a perfect plane. This was not brute force. It was an intimate understanding of material properties, a patient art of persuading the earth to give up its bones in the exact shapes they required. Their genius lay in selection as much as extraction. They knew that not all stone was created equal. For the dazzling outer casing that would make the pyramids gleam like primordial mountains in the sun, they sought the finest, whitest limestone from Tura. For the immense sarcophagus and the weight-bearing walls of the king's chamber, only the hardest granite from far off Aswan would suffice. The bulky core of the pyramid, meanwhile, could be built from softer, more local stone, a practical decision that saved immense effort. Each block was a conscious choice, its type and quality matched to its ultimate purpose, all selected for a single, overarching trait: the ability to resist the slow, patient ravages of millennia. These quarried blocks, some weighing as much as 50 tons, were now ready, but they were still just isolated pieces of a puzzle, resting miles from the sacred ground where they would be assembled into a monument. The next challenge was a feat of physics that seems to defy belief, moving mountains one stone at a time. A colossal granite block, heavier than 20 modern cars, begins a slow, deliberate migration across the desert. This was the daily reality of pyramid construction, a triumph of logistics over pure mass. Moving these megaliths was not a matter of magic, but of coordinated physics and overwhelming human effort. The primary tool for this Herculean task was the sledge, a massive wooden platform upon which the stone was securely lashed. Tomb paintings depict these scenes vividly, showing teams of laborers, sometimes numbering in the hundreds, hauling on thick ropes, their movements directed by an overseer beating time with clapping hands or a rhythmic chant. To overcome the immense friction between the sledge and the desert sand, the Egyptians employed a brilliantly simple solution. They poured water onto the path ahead of the sledge. Experimental archaeology has proven that just the right amount of moisture causes the sand to become firm, drastically reducing the pulling force required by as much as half. It was a slippery highway engineered from nothing but water and dirt. For stones quarried from distant locations like Aswan, the journey was even more complex. Evidence suggests they leveraged the Nile itself, the nation's natural highway. Blocks would be loaded onto massive, purpose-built barges during the annual inundation, when floodwaters reached closest to the desert plateaus, minimizing the final overland haul. This entire operation required a support system as monumental as the stones themselves. A single transport required not just the pullers, but a mobile city of support, with crews assigned to constantly lubricate the path, others to repair ropes and sledges, and still others to manage the immense logistics of food, water, and shelter for everyone involved. This was a symphony of synchronized effort, where every drop of water and every loaf of bread had to arrive at the right place and time. After this epic journey, the stone would finally arrive at the foot of the growing pyramid. But the greatest challenge still lay ahead, lifting this incredible weight towards the sky and locking it perfectly into place. The growing pyramid was not a silent mountain of stone, but a vibrant, pulsing landscape of its own, wrapped in a temporary skin of earth and ingenuity. This was the world of the ramp, the temporary yet essential highway that allowed workers to defy gravity itself. The exact design of these ramps remains one of Egyptology's most compelling mysteries, a puzzle with no single definitive answer. One prominent theory suggests the use of a single, straight ramp built directly against one face of the pyramid. This design is beautifully simple in concept, a direct road to the top. Yet, as the pyramid grew, this ramp would have to become impossibly long and wide, requiring more material to build than the pyramid itself, a logistical nightmare that makes this theory difficult to support for the very tallest structures. Another compelling idea is the zigzag ramp, a single pathway that switchbacked up one face of the pyramid. This would be far more economical with material, but it presents its own intricate challenges, particularly in maneuvering the heavy, block-laden sledges around sharp, 90-degree corners at every turn. Perhaps the most elegant solution proposed is the internal spiral ramp, a corkscrewing roadway built directly into the rising edges of the pyramid, hidden within its very structure. This would be incredibly efficient, but it leaves little room for the massive work crews and raises questions about the stability of the partially built monument. Each theory has its merits and its flaws, and it is entirely possible that the ancient builders used a hybrid approach, adapting their methods for different phases of construction. The ramps themselves were feats of engineering built from mudbrick, limestone chips, and desert taffla clay, materials that could be sourced locally and later dismantled with relative ease. Their construction and eventual removal were projects of staggering scale in their own right, a testament to a civilization that saw no problem as too great if it served the ultimate goal. This temporary scaffold, this earthen mountain built to create a stone one, was the final, crucial step in the assembly process. With the stones hauled into their final positions, the builders could turn their attention to the last transformative act, the moment the pyramid would truly become a beacon for eternity. The pyramid's final transformation was a spectacle of pure light. After the core structure was complete, its rough, stepped form was entirely encased in a brilliant skin of polished Chura limestone. Each casing block was a masterpiece of geometry, cut with such precision that the joints between them were said to be nearly invisible, thinner than a razor's edge. These were not simply flat panels, but trapezoidal blocks set at the exact, predetermined angle of the pyramid's face, locking together to form a single, continuous, and impossibly smooth surface. From a distance, the effect was not of a built structure, but of a man-made mountain that caught the first and last rays of the sun, shining with such intensity that it would have been visible for miles across the desert. This brilliant facade was far more than a beautiful finish. It was a sophisticated shield, a seamless armor protecting the softer core masonry from the relentless scouring of desert winds. Every perfectly fitted stone defied the elements, channeling wind and sand smoothly over its surface instead of letting it eat away at the vulnerable corners and edges beneath. And in the spiritual language of the builders, this gleaming white form represented the primordial mound, the first land to emerge from the waters of chaos at the dawn of creation. The pyramid was thus a symbol of creation itself, a perfect, shining engine of rebirth. This astounding commitment to both beauty and durability raises a profound question. What sacred space, what final and ultimate purpose, did this perfect protective shell exist to guard? Beyond that gleaming white shell lay a world of profound darkness and intricate purpose. The interior of the Great Pyramid was not a simple burial cave. It was a multi-level spiritual machine engineered for a single, sacred event, the pharaoh's transformation and ascent. The journey began with a steep, narrow passage descending deep into the bedrock, a symbolic pathway into the underworld, the realm of the dead known as the Duat. But the true path to the heavens was the ascending corridor, a tight, claustrophobic tunnel angling sharply upward into the heart of the monument. This was not a path for the living, but a carefully calculated route for the soul. Halfway up this corridor, the builders integrated a masterpiece of practical security and spiritual symbolism, the Grand Gallery. This soaring, corbel vaulted hall is an architectural marvel, its walls rising in 7 overlapping tiers, creating a narrow, towering space that seems to pull the eye and the spirit ever upward. At its top lay the final defense, the antechamber, a small room fitted with a complex system of granite portcullis slabs. These massive blocking stones could be lowered vertically into slots, permanently sealing the inner sanctum from the world below. This was both a physical barrier against intrusion and a symbolic gate, separating the realm of the living from the domain of the divine king. Beyond this final gate lay the king's chamber, the climax of the entire internal blueprint. Its walls, floor, and ceiling are built entirely from immense blocks of red granite, a stone chosen for its incredible hardness and enduring nature. The room is stark and austere, housing only a single, lidless granite sarcophagus. Yet, its true genius is hidden above. To distribute the colossal weight of the pyramid pressing down from above, the builders constructed 5 so-called relieving chambers stacked over the ceiling of the king's chamber. These compartments, topped with massive, gabled granite slabs, cleverly redirected millions of tons of stone, ensuring the chamber below would remain intact for eternity. From this sacred space, the narrow shafts, often misnamed as air shafts, point directly toward specific constellations. The northern shaft targeted the circumpolar stars, the imperishable ones that never set, symbolizing eternal life. The southern shaft was aimed at the constellation of Orion, associated with Osiris, the god of death and resurrection. These were not for ventilation, but were celestial conduits, spiritual highways designed to channel the king's soul directly to its eternal destination among the gods. Every corridor, every chamber, and every stone in this internal labyrinth was a deliberate component in a grand metaphysical device, a perfect fusion of engineering might and unwavering belief. The true scale of the pyramid project is measured not only in stone, but in the rhythm of daily life. Beneath the sands at the edge of the Giza Plateau lie the ruins of a lost city, a place the modern world knows as Hayt el Ghurab. Here, thousands of workers and their families lived in an orderly grid of streets and galleries, a purpose-built community dedicated to a single, sacred task. This was not a prison camp, but a highly organized, state-run settlement. Archaeological excavations have revealed a society of specialists. There were the skilled artisans, the stone masons and carvers who gave the blocks their perfect shape. There were the architects and engineers who translated celestial alignments into earthly plans. And there was a vast support network, the bakers who produced thousands of loaves of bread in massive, communal ovens, the brewers who supplied the staple beverage of beer, and the fishermen who cured vast quantities of fish from the Nile. The evidence for their daily lives is etched into the very refuse they left behind. Animal bone analysis shows a surprisingly standardized diet rich in cattle, sheep, and goat, a level of sustenance that suggests these were valued laborers, not disposable slaves. Perhaps most telling are the clues left by the physicians. Healed fractures and even successful amputations found on skeletal remains point to a sophisticated level of medical care, a form of workers' compensation that ensured the injured were cared for and could return to their duties. This entire operation was managed with bureaucratic precision. Papyrus records discovered at the Red Sea port of Wadi al-Jaf detail the intricate logistics, the daily delivery of food rations, the management of tools, and the careful accounting of labor shifts. This was a system capable of supporting a small, dedicated city for decades, a testament to an administrative machine of staggering efficiency. The eternal monuments we marvel at today were the product of this living, breathing, and remarkably sophisticated community. Their sustenance, their very lives, were drawn from the fertile heart of Egypt itself, the annual gift of the Nile that made such a grand, generational undertaking possible. The river was the ultimate engine of their ambition. Each year, the Nile's inundation transformed the landscape, and the pyramid builders saw this not as a seasonal obstacle, but as a predictable, powerful tool to be harnessed. Their mastery over their environment extended deep into the science of hydrology, allowing them to use water itself as a construction material, a compelling theory supported by sediment cores and geological surveys suggests they engineered a grand canal system or an artificial basin that branched off from the Nile. During the height of the annual flood, this man-made waterway would have reached the very edge of the Giza Plateau. Picture massive, stone-laden barges, buoyed by the swollen waters, gliding silently to within a few hundred meters of the rising pyramid. This single innovation would have slashed the overland dragging distance by an immense margin, turning a potentially impossible logistical nightmare into a manageable final haul. The effort required to build these canals and harbors was itself a monumental undertaking, but it was an investment that paid for itself thousands of times over in saved labor and time. They were not just moving stones, they were moving rivers. This aquatic highway required immense planning, with engineers carefully calculating water depths and coordinating the arrival of stone shipments from distant quarries with the precise timing of the flood season. It was a seasonal, synchronized ballet of logistics, where the rhythm of the natural world was integrated directly into the construction schedule. The Nile was more than a source of life. It was the nation's primary freight network, a liquid conveyor belt that delivered the very bones of eternity to its building site. With the stone now at the base of the pyramid, the final assembly could begin, a process that demanded its own unique set of tools and a level of precision we are only beginning to appreciate. The true strength of the pyramids lies hidden within their core, in the silent, perfect marriage of stone upon stone. Look past the long-gone gleaming casing, and you will find the inner heart of the structure, a seemingly chaotic jumble of irregular blocks. Yet this chaos is a profound illusion. The builders practiced a masterful art known as dry stone masonry, a technique that forgoes any binding mortar, relying instead on the sheer intelligence of the fit. Each stone, with its unique contours and angles, was painstakingly shaped by skilled masons to lock perfectly with its neighbors. The goal was a joint so tight that not even a sliver of light or the edge of a modern razor blade could pass between them. This was not about beauty, it was about physics. The immense collective weight of the entire pyramid pressing down uniformly transfers force through these perfectly matched surfaces. Any small shift or settlement is distributed across thousands of interlocking points, allowing the entire structure to move as a single, monolithic unit, absorbing stresses that would shatter a more rigid, mortared construction. This invisible interlocking is the secret to its resilience, a flexible strength that has shrugged off earthquakes for millennia. But such perfect alignment above relied on an equally perfect beginning below. Before a single stone of this puzzle could be laid, the builders faced their first and most critical test, creating a perfectly level foundation across an area spanning multiple football fields. Their solution was one of elegant simplicity. They cut a grid of shallow trenches across the entire building site and filled them with water, creating a network of miniature, interconnected canals. Water, they knew, always finds its own level. By using a simple sighting rod to measure down from the water's surface to the bedrock at countless points, they could identify every high spot and systematically grind it down until the entire foundation platform was uniformly leveled to within a mere 2 centimeters. This was a monumental undertaking of patience and precision, achieved with nothing more than water, rock, and human ingenuity. The invisible artistry of the level foundation and the perfectly fitted core are the unsung heroes of this story, the deep, hidden strengths that allowed the grand spiritual vision to achieve physical permanence. This knowledge was not written in grand texts but passed hand to hand from master mason to apprentice, a living blueprint for eternity woven into the very fabric of their culture. The blueprint for eternity was not only carved in stone but meticulously inked onto papyrus. In a small administrative office, a scribe crouched over a scroll, his reed pen tracing the day's vital statistics, the number of blocks quarried, the rations distributed to the crew, the precise progress of a barge journey. This humble act of documentation was the 13th principle, the lifeblood of the entire operation. Without this formalized system of record-keeping and knowledge transfer, a project spanning decades would have collapsed into chaos. We have a breathtakingly direct window into this world through a surviving document known as the Diary of Mura. This papyrus log, written by a mid-level inspector, details the transportation of pristine white limestone casing stones from the quarries at Tura to the Great Pyramid at Giza. It records the daily activities of his team, the schedules, and most importantly, it names the officials he reported to, revealing a clear and efficient command hierarchy. This was not a vague oral tradition. It was a bureaucracy in action, a civilization running on paperwork. The complex knowledge of geometry, astronomy, and logistics was far too valuable to be left to chance or individual memory. It was codified and taught in scribble schools, where apprentices learned from technical manuals like the Rhind mathematical papyrus, which provided the formulas for calculating volumes and slopes. This created an institutional memory, a continuous thread of understanding passed from one generation of master builders to the next. The original architect's grand vision, his celestial alignments and sacred ratios, could survive his passing because they were not just in his mind. They were committed to a system, they were written down. This system ensured that a project begun by a pharaoh's father could be faithfully completed by his son, preserving the integrity of the divine blueprint across the span of a human lifetime. But with the plan secured on papyrus and the stones perfectly fitted into place, one final, haunting question remains. What was the ultimate cost of this audacious pact with eternity? The ground itself had to be made holy before it could bear the weight of eternity. Long before the first stone was set, the construction site was transformed through sacred ceremony, a process as vital to the builders as the mathematics that would follow. The most important of these was the stretching of the cord ritual, a powerful fusion of astronomy, geometry, and faith. Led by the pharaoh himself alongside the high priestess of the goddess Seshat, the patroness of measurement, the ceremony involved driving stakes into the earth and stretching a sacred cord between them to mark the perfect axis of the future temple or pyramid. This was not a simple surveying exercise. It was a reenactment of the primordial act of creation, the moment the gods brought order from chaos, and it directly linked the pharaoh's divine authority to the precision of the building's alignment with the stars. The successful completion of this ritual was believed to secure the eternal favor of the gods for the entire project. Following this, foundation deposits were buried at the corners of the site. These caches contained a powerful array of objects, from simple model tools and pottery vessels to ceremonial offerings, each item symbolizing a different aspect of the structure's purpose, stability, and spiritual protection. To dismiss these rituals as empty superstition is to miss their profound function. They were the psychological and social bedrock of the entire endeavor. For the thousands of workers, seeing their god-king perform these rites provided an unshakable sense of purpose. It transformed their backbreaking labor from a state-mandated task into a direct participation in a cosmic drama, a shared spiritual mission that bound the community together for generations. The consecrated ground was now ready. With the site spiritually activated and the community's purpose unified, the long, patient work of raising the monument could truly begin, guided by a vision that stretched far beyond the horizon of a single human life. A single human lifetime was simply not enough to build a mountain. The vast timeline of a pyramid's construction demanded a 15th principle, one that transcended individual ambition, pharaonic succession, and a multi-generational covenant. The Giza Plateau itself is the ultimate testament to this, a family project on a cosmic scale. The Great Pyramid of Khufu was likely still being encased in its shining white limestone when his son, Khafre, began his own monument right next door. Then Khafre's son, Menkaure, added a third, slightly smaller pyramid to complete the iconic triad. This was not a series of separate projects, but a continuous, nearly century-long endeavor, a relay race of divine purpose passed from father to son. Each new pharaoh inherited a sacred duty, the obligation to complete his father's eternal house before even beginning his own. This required a stability of government and a cultural mindset that is almost unimaginable today. The entire state apparatus, the quarries, the worker settlements, the logistical networks, they all had to remain perfectly functional and funded across multiple reigns. There could be no civil war, no economic collapse, no questioning of the fundamental belief that building for the departed king was essential for the kingdom's future prosperity. This was a society that worshipped its royal ancestors, seeing their continued divine power as directly linked to the completion of their tombs. A finished pyramid was not just a memorial, it was a fully activated power source for the cosmos, and a half-built one was a spiritual liability for the entire nation. This long-term thinking extended far beyond the desert necropolises. They applied the same generational vision to carving entire temples from living rock and to maintaining the sacred boundaries of their fields against the Nile's annual floods. Their true engineering marvel was not just in moving stone, but in moving an entire culture forward with a unified purpose across the span of 100 years. How did they ensure that the intricate knowledge required for such tasks was never lost, that the sacred blueprints survived the passing of the very minds that first drew them? The same principles that raised the pyramids also shaped the very earth beneath the desert cliffs. In the Valley of the Kings, the eternal blueprint was inverted, turned inward as master builders traded stone upon stone for the patient art of subtraction. Here, they did not build up but carved down, tunneling hundreds of feet into the solid rock to create hidden, labyrinthine tombs. This was a radical shift in strategy, moving from monumental visibility to absolute concealment. The goal, however, remained unchanged: to create an indestructible, eternal resting place for the pharaoh. These subterranean complexes were spiritual fortresses, their walls covered in intricate spells and vivid scenes from the Book of the Dead, a divine guidebook to navigate the afterlife. Every corridor, every painted chamber was a deliberate component in a hidden machine of resurrection, protected not by mass but by secrecy and the mountain itself. Yet for the living, the divine required a different stage, one of open celebration and awesome scale. Far to the south, at Karnak and Luxor, the engineering of eternity took on a completely different form. These were not silent, hidden tombs, but vibrant, bustling centers of worship, cities of stone designed to awe the human spirit. The great hypostyle hall at Karnak is a forest in stone, a colossal maze of 134 massive columns, some so wide that it would take 6 adults with arms outstretched to circle one. Their capitals are shaped like blooming papyrus and lotus flowers, forever freezing in stone the marsh from which creation first sprang. This was architecture as a living ecosystem, a place where the people could commune with their gods and where the principles of precise alignment, perfect proportion, and enduring material were applied with the same religious fervor as at Giza. Perhaps the most breathtaking fusion of spiritual ambition and raw engineering prowess was the obelisk. These single, monolithic needles of red granite were quarried, shaped, polished, and then transported hundreds of miles down the Nile. Raising one was a feat of terrifying precision. Workers would slowly drag the immense stone up a vast earthen ramp, carefully guiding it until its base hovered over a waiting pedestal. Then, with a coordinated release of sandbags from beneath it, the several hundred-ton monument would drop a few crucial inches into its standing position. A miscalculation of a fraction of an inch meant catastrophic failure. Each successfully raised obelisk was a declaration, a finger of stone pointing directly to the sun god Ra, capturing his first light each dawn. The eternal blueprint was not a single set of instructions for one type of building. It was a versatile philosophy, a collection of sacred and technical principles that could be adapted to create soaring temples for public ritual, hidden tombs for private transformation, or piercing obelisks for divine connection. They all shared the same immutable goal: to create a dialogue with eternity that would withstand the relentless passage of centuries. The timeless stone is not immune to the patient siege of centuries. Look closely at the Great Sphinx, its leonine body deeply grooved by countless desert sandstorms, its regal face stripped of a nose and beard. These are the scars of a long war against nature and humanity, a conflict that reveals a 17th principle: the enduring battle between creation and decay. The original architects were not naive. They built with these very enemies in mind. The Great Pyramid's brilliant white casing was a seamless shield, its smooth, sloped faces expertly designed to deflect the scouring wind and driving sand. The immense, interlocking core blocks were arranged to distribute seismic energy, allowing the structure to sway as a single unit during the rare but powerful earthquakes that shook the region. Their designs were proactive defenses, a form of architectural foresight meant to outwit time itself. Yet the greatest test often came from the very species that built them. In later centuries, many of those perfect casing stones were systematically quarried away to build mosques and fortifications in nearby Cairo. Stripped of its protective skin, the softer core masonry beneath was left exposed and vulnerable, accelerating the erosion we see today. The Sphinx itself suffered from targeted vandalism, its royal beard and nose likely removed in a deliberate act to diminish its symbolic power. Each mark tells a story not just of loss but of resilience. The fact that so much still stands, that these structures have weathered millennia of environmental stress and human intervention, is a profound testament to the genius of their original blueprints. We are left to marvel at what has survived against all odds and to ask a vital question for our own time. How can we apply their ancient wisdom to protect these monuments for the centuries still to come? The principles that built the pyramids are not locked in the past. They are written into the steel and concrete of our modern world. When an engineer designs a skyscraper to sway safely in the wind, they are applying the same understanding of load distribution that the pyramid builders mastered, allowing their stone mountains to move as one during earthquakes. The immense weight of a modern dam is channeled through its structure in a way that directly echoes the relieving chambers above the king's chamber, a principle of redirecting force that remains fundamental to all large-scale construction. We see their legacy not only in physics but in logistics. The ancient system of state-managed quarries, transport routes, and worker settlements was a prototype for the global supply chains and just-in-time delivery that build our cities today. It was a controlled, centralized model for mobilizing resources on a colossal scale. Even the concept of corvée labor finds its modern counterpart in national service programs and large public works projects that mobilize citizen effort for a common goal. Contemporary architects still analyze the pyramids for lessons in geometric precision and unparalleled durability, seeking to understand how these structures have endured while so many modern buildings have a planned expiration date. The Eternal Blueprint is a living library of human ingenuity. It teaches us that the solutions to some of our most complex challenges, the art of building for the ages, was not invented but rediscovered, its foundations laid thousands of years ago in the Egyptian sand. To fully appreciate this legacy, we must now look beyond the stones themselves and examine the very minds that conceived them, using the advanced tools of our time to decode the thoughts of the ancients. The final secrets of the pyramids are now being read with tools the original architects could never have conceived. In a quiet laboratory, scientists monitor a device that captures the faint, constant rain of subatomic particles called muons, which are created when cosmic rays strike our atmosphere. These particles pass effortlessly through solid matter, but their path is slightly altered by dense materials like stone. By placing sensitive detectors inside the pyramid's known chambers, researchers can analyze the muon flux to create a three-dimensional map of its density, effectively creating an X-ray of the entire structure. This non-invasive technique has already revealed a stunning void, a previously unknown space above the Grand Gallery, a hidden chamber that had been sealed for 4,500 years. We are no longer just studying the pyramid, we are listening to it, hearing the echoes of its empty spaces. This is the frontier of digital archaeology, where we can explore the past without ever disturbing a single stone. Alongside Muon tomography, ground-penetrating radar sends pulses of energy into the earth, revealing the ghostly outlines of buried walls and roads near the Giza Plateau. Three-dimensional laser scanners mounted on tripods fire millions of precise laser points at a monument, capturing every crack, every imperfection, to create a perfect digital twin. This allows conservators to monitor the slightest structural shifts over time, a vital tool in the ongoing battle to preserve these monuments. From high above, satellites with infrared cameras can detect subtle differences in soil density and vegetation, tracing the outlines of entire lost cities that lie just beneath the farmlands of the Nile Delta. Each of these technologies acts as a new lens, bringing a different part of the ancient blueprint into sharp focus. They confirm the incredible accuracy of the quarries and the vast scale of the worker settlements, but they also present us with new puzzles, like the mysterious void in the Great Pyramid. What was its purpose? Was it a construction gap, a sealed relieving chamber, or something more profound? These tools are not giving us all the answers. Instead, they are asking us new questions, proving that the story of Egyptian engineering is far from a closed book. The stones have kept their secrets for millennia, but now, through the silent language of particles and light, they are finally beginning to speak. The true genius of the eternal blueprint lies not only in its stones but in the hands that placed them. For too long, we have envisioned a workforce of oppressed slaves, yet the archaeological evidence paints a completely different, more human picture. Meet Mura, a mid-level inspector whose own diary, found at a remote harbor, records his pride in delivering fine limestone for the king's pyramid. His voice, preserved on papyrus, is not one of servitude but of professional duty. He was part of a vast, organized community, a society of specialists. The bones of these workers tell their own story. Healed fractures, successful amputations, and evidence of long-term medical care reveal a society that invested in its laborers, tending to their injuries so they could return to their vital work. These were not disposable tools, but skilled artisans and dedicated state employees. They even named their work crews with titles like the Friends of Khufu or the Drunkards of Menkaure, names that speak of camaraderie and a shared identity rooted in their sacred task. Building for eternity was a national project that conferred status and purpose, a collective endeavor where a baker feeding thousands or a mason perfecting a single block could see their own role in upholding the cosmic order. This social achievement is the final, crucial component of the eternal blueprint. It was a system that harnessed human skill and pride, not just brute force, to achieve the impossible. Recognizing this profound partnership between human spirit and stone forces us to reflect on the monuments we choose to build today and the legacy of purpose we leave for the future. Their entire civilization was built on a pact with time itself. This obsession with permanence did not just produce grand monuments, it fundamentally reshaped their worldview, infusing every aspect of their culture with a profound sense of the eternal. Their art was not created for fleeting fashion. The rigid, formal poses seen in tomb paintings and statues were not a lack of skill, but a deliberate choice. These idealized figures were designed to be instantly recognizable to the gods for all time, capturing the essence of a person in a form that would never decay or go out of style. Their literature, preserved on tomb walls and papyrus scrolls, constantly grapples with themes of legacy and memory, instructing the living on how to live a life worthy of being remembered for millennia. Even their calendar, one of the first solar calendars in history, was a testament to this. By creating a predictable, repeating cycle of seasons tied to the sun, they tamed the chaotic flow of time, turning it into a reliable, eternal loop. This cultural engine was fueled by a stark awareness of life's fragility. The lush, narrow ribbon of the Nile Valley was surrounded by the relentless, consuming desert, a daily reminder of the thin line between life and oblivion, order and chaos. In the face of this, their drive to build in stone was a philosophical rebellion. It was a collective, defiant act against oblivion, a statement that their society, their gods, and their king would not be erased by the sands of time. This stands in quiet contrast to much of our modern world, where we often celebrate the new, the temporary, and the disposable. We build with planned obsolescence, and our digital monuments can vanish with a single server failure. So we must ask ourselves, what do our own ambitions for the future truly say about what we value? The pyramids challenge us to look beyond our own lifetimes and consider what parts of our culture we are building to last, and what we are willing to invest in a legacy that we ourselves may never see completed. There is a powerful echo of this ambition in the stone circles of Britain and the mountain temples of Peru. Across vast distances and entirely separate cultures, a common human impulse arose, the drive to reshape the earth itself into something permanent and sacred. The great trilithons of Stonehenge stand as a testament to a society that mastered the movement of multi-ton bluestones over hundreds of miles, a feat of Neolithic logistics that rivals the transport of Egyptian granite. Yet the builders of Stonehenge left us no written records, no pharaohs to command a unified state. Their motivation remains locked in the silent alignment of their stones with the solstice sun, a communal project of a different kind. On another continent, the Inca of South America achieved a stonework so precise that their massive, irregular blocks fit together without mortar, with joints so tight they defy the insertion of a razor blade, a technique hauntingly similar to the core masonry of the pyramids. But the Inca, masters of their rugged Andes, built without the wheel, without iron tools, and without a formal writing system, relying instead on an oral tradition and the organizational genius of the quipu, a complex system of knotted cords. This global perspective reveals a profound truth. The fundamental challenges of quarrying, moving, and raising immense stones were solved independently by cultures with vastly different tools and beliefs. What then sets the Egyptian achievement apart? It was the specific, powerful combination of a singular, divine ruler, a centralized bureaucratic state, and the technology of the written word. This triad created a replicable formula for eternity. The Maya, for all their astronomical genius and towering pyramids, were often divided into competing city-states. The Inca Empire, though vast, was a relatively recent and fleeting phenomenon. Egypt enjoyed a stability that spanned centuries, a continuity of culture and purpose that allowed its engineering principles to be refined and repeated across generations. This was not a single, brilliant flash of inspiration, but a sustained, institutionalized tradition. The uniqueness of Egypt lies in this consistency of scale and execution, a civilization that turned the impossible into a state-sponsored routine. For all the shared human genius displayed in megaliths around the world, only in the Nile Valley was the blueprint for eternity so thoroughly systematized, leaving us with a legacy of stone that continues to ask us what is possible when an entire culture looks to the horizon of forever. Even with all our advanced technology, the Great Pyramid refuses to surrender all its secrets. These are not minor gaps in our understanding, but profound enigmas that challenge the very narrative of ancient engineering. Take the mysterious voids detected deep within the monument. Muon scanning has revealed a large, unexpected space above the Grand Gallery, a hidden chamber that has been sealed since the pyramid was built. Is it a structural feature designed to relieve weight, a sealed repository meant to protect sacred objects, or an entirely unknown chamber with a purpose we have not yet dreamed of? Researchers continue to debate its function, knowing that a single, definitive answer could fundamentally alter our view of the pyramid's internal design. Then there is the puzzle of the king's chamber itself, specifically the multi-ton granite beams that form its ceiling. Each of these colossal slabs weighs more than 50 tons. How did the builders hoist them over 150 feet into the air and then maneuver them into such a precise position? The confined space and immense weight make this one of the most complex logistical problems in the entire construction process. No ramp theory seems to perfectly explain this final, delicate act of placing the roof. The solution they devised remains a testament to a lost art of ultra-heavy lifting. And what of the pyramid's pinnacle, its very first stone, the original capstone, likely made of gleaming electrum or fine white limestone, is long gone? Was it a small pyramidion stone or something more elaborate? Its absence is a powerful symbol of the incomplete picture we have. We can model the structure from the ground up, but we cannot be certain how it was officially crowned. These lingering questions do more than just frustrate archaeologists. They invigorate the entire field. They remind us that the past is not a static, solved equation, but a living, breathing mystery. The pursuit of these answers is a modern echo of the ancient quest for knowledge itself, a continuous dialogue across millennia. What other secrets are waiting not to be found but to be asked? Even the most brilliant engineers were not immune to the unforgiving laws of physics. Rising from the desert at Dosha, the bent pyramid stands as a permanent record of a crisis averted, its upper section abruptly changing angle in a visible departure from its original design. This was not a failure, but a moment of brilliant adaptation. Evidence suggests the builders encountered alarming structural stresses, perhaps settling in the foundation or instability in the core masonry, forcing a rapid and pragmatic decision. To continue at the original, steeper angle risked a catastrophic collapse, so they made a crucial correction, finishing the pyramid with a shallower, safer slope. This architectural compromise is a powerful testament to their empirical process. They were not infallible gods, but practical problem solvers who learned by doing. The lessons from this near disaster were immediately applied. Just a short distance away, the very next pyramid built, the Red Pyramid, rises with a consistent, gentle slope from base to tip, a direct and successful application of the knowledge gained from the bent pyramid structural challenges. These imperfect monuments are arguably more instructive than the flawless ones. They reveal a culture that could observe, analyze, and correct its course, proving that their legendary mastery was not a gift but an achievement, earned through careful observation and the courage to change plans when reality intervened. How many other experiments, now completely lost to time, provided the foundational knowledge that made Giza possible? This willingness to learn from setbacks was the final, crucial ingredient in their enduring success, a humble wisdom etched in stone for all time. So what can we truly learn from this civilization's pact with eternity? The entire endeavor can be distilled into 5 fundamental pillars, a timeless blueprint for turning vision into reality. The first pillar was a unifying spiritual vision, the unwavering belief in Maat, the cosmic order that the pharaoh was divinely charged to maintain. This was not a vague hope but a powerful mandate that justified the investment of an entire society's resources, framing monumental construction as an essential act of cosmic preservation. The second pillar was unprecedented social organization, a centralized bureaucracy capable of mobilizing a nation. Through a system of taxation and organized labor, they created a redistributive economy that could feed, house, and manage thousands of specialized workers for decades, transforming human effort into a coordinated force. The third pillar was their mastery of advanced applied sciences. This was not theoretical knowledge but practical genius, using astronomy to align their structures with the stars, geometry to lay out perfect foundations and slopes, and material science to select and quarry stone for maximum endurance. The fourth pillar was masterful logistics and transport, a symphony of coordinated movement. From lubricated slipways for dragging colossal blocks to ingenious canals that harnessed the Nile's floodwaters, they turned the landscape itself into a tool for moving mountains. The final pillar was a multi-generational execution plan, a cultural commitment that looked beyond a single lifetime. This long-term perspective ensured that projects begun by a father were faithfully completed by his son, creating a relay race of divine purpose that provided the stability needed for century-long undertakings. These 5 pillars together formed an interlocking system, a complete framework where belief, organization, knowledge, logistics, and time itself were all harnessed toward a single, enduring goal. This is more than a historical summary. It is a toolkit of principles that remains profoundly relevant, challenging us to consider what we could achieve if we combined a clear, unifying purpose with meticulous organization, applied science, and a commitment to a future we ourselves may never see. These ancient principles offer a stark contrast to our modern world of planned obsolescence and fleeting digital data. The Egyptians built with a time horizon of millennia, a perspective we urgently need when confronting 21st century challenges like climate-resilient infrastructure. Their structures were designed to work with environmental forces, not just resist them. The pyramid's smooth, sloping faces actively deflected desert winds, while their internal stone locking allowed them to flex during seismic events. Today, engineers designing seawalls or flood barriers can learn from this philosophy of dynamic resilience, creating structures that adapt to and manage natural energy rather than simply standing rigid against it. This long-term thinking becomes even more critical when we consider projects like the long-term storage of nuclear waste, which must remain safely contained for periods that dwarf the entire history of the pyramids. The markers for these sites must communicate danger across a gulf of 10,000 years, a challenge of eternal messaging that the Egyptians mastered through universal symbols carved in indestructible stone. Their success forces us to ask if our own solutions, often reliant on digital formats that become obsolete within decades, are truly built to last. We are creating a digital dark age where vast archives of knowledge stored on fragile media could vanish within a century, while their papyrus records, inscribed with durable ink, have survived for over 4,000 years. The Egyptian model champions redundancy, local materials, and a community-centric approach. They did not haul granite from across the world when local limestone would suffice for the core, a lesson in sustainable resource management. Their worker cities show that monumental projects can and should sustain the communities that build them, creating shared purpose and lasting social benefit. The sands of Egypt hold a blueprint not for the past but for a sustainable future, challenging us to look beyond quarterly reports and election cycles and build a legacy worthy of the ages. These monuments do not whisper from the past, they speak with a clarity that echoes across thousands of years. They are the ultimate proof of what becomes possible when a civilization unites under a powerful vision, marries it with meticulous organization, and dedicates itself to a goal far greater than any single lifetime. Our journey through this ancient blueprint reveals a profound truth. The true legacy of Egypt's engineers is not merely the stone they left behind, but the timeless demonstration that we, too, can create works that transcend our own mortality. They achieved this not through magic, but through the deliberate application of 5 interlocking principles. A unifying spiritual vision provided the unwavering why. A masterful social organization mobilized the who, Advanced applied sciences gave them the how, brilliant logistics and transport solved the where. And a multi-generational execution plan honored the when. This was a complete system for turning human ambition into enduring reality. Let these timeless structures serve as a challenge and an inspiration. In your own life and work, think bigger. Plan for a horizon beyond your own. Build with a purpose that matters. What will your legacy be? If this journey into the mind of ancient engineers has sparked your curiosity, subscribe for more explorations into history's greatest mysteries. We would love to hear what the idea of eternity means to you in the comments